It was summertime in New Zealand. It was around nighttime. Very, very hot it felt. I could see the walls of the room around me. I could smell the stale air in the house. And I could hear voices. I have not always had schizophrenia. Around 6 to 7 years ago, I started to hear my neighbors talking to me from the wall. At the time, I thought this was pretty normal. The walls were thin. I was living in a terrace. One night, I had a psychotic episode. I went outside to shadow play badminton. In my mind, I could hear my neighbors talking to me. At the time, I thought nothing was unusual about it. They commented on how I should be playing badminton with an actual racket. I never stopped to think, how were they able to see me playing badminton in my backyard when there are tall fences everywhere? The voices were coming from downstairs, so they weren't watching me from upstairs. Were they peeking through the holes in the fence? No. But all the same, I thought this was the most rational thing in the world. I was playing badminton in my backyard, and it was normal that my neighbors were watching me and commenting on every single thing I was doing. At the time, I felt ashamed because I wasn't shadow playing badminton with an actual racket. And my neighbors were commenting on that. But now that I think back on it, maybe it was all in my head. My neighbors were never talking to me. I just hallucinated it. I did not need to feel ashamed that I was shadow playing badminton in my backyard. Many people talk about schizophrenia as if all the voices are in your own head. But that's really only after you take antipsychotic medications. When I first started experiencing schizophrenia, I didn't know I was mentally ill. I just thought I literally heard voices coming from outside my own head, not from inside. Now it feels like the voices are coming from inside, but it wasn't the case before. I remember I was in the backyard. And I was imagining I was playing baseball in my backyard. I thought I was some kind of professional baseball player, and I was trying to mimic playing baseball with my entire body. And I remember while I was playing baseball, my parents were inside the house eating dinner. And I remember my neighbors, which were on a hill just above my backyard. And I heard them laughing at me. And I heard them saying, "Go back to your parents." And I thought that was the most rational thing in the world. me playing baseball in my backyard, my neighbors watching me, and them telling me to go back to eat dinner with my parents. Was I really that important? That everything I did was watched 24/7 by my neighbors and commented on by my neighbors? Not necessarily. Now that I look back on it, I think no one was really talking to me at all. I was just having hallucinations. In the end, I did go back to eat dinner with my parents because I felt ashamed that my neighbors were commenting on me playing baseball when I could have been eating dinner with my parents. I remember another psychotic episode I had was when I was method acting that a female friend I had taken her own life. And I literally thought that it was true. And because I thought my neighbors were listening to everything I said, I told them through the wall about this story about my dead female friend. And I remember they were praying for me. I could hear them doing some kind of ritual on the wooden staircase. They were drumming some kind of funeral-like beat. And I could hear them saying through the window of their house, "After talking about it, it'll be okay." And I felt better after that. Even though my female friend probably never actually died. It was all in my head. And I remember I imagined myself as a firefighter trying to relive a past that never happened. I was trying to save my female friend from a fire in the house. And I imagined myself as a big, strong firefighter and paramedic lifting the wall, lifting some rubble, some rocks, some obstacles out of the way. And I could imagine myself tiptoeing on the ledge of the second story of the burning building. But in the end, did I believe that any of it was real? The burning building, the dead female friend. Of course, in the back of my mind, I knew it wasn't true. But somehow, for some reason, I wanted to believe it was true. That I wanted to be some kind of victim. That I had lost someone important to me. But thankfully, I hadn't lost anyone. It was all in my head. Some act that I method acted. I still had my family. My parents were still alive. My siblings were still alive. All my cousins were still alive. I hadn't lost anyone. All in all, I heard my neighbors commenting on me playing shadow badminton without a racket, and I felt ashamed. Now that I think about it, it's illogical that my neighbors would watch me 24/7 what I was doing in my backyard. I also was playing baseball one time in my backyard while my parents were eating dinner, and my neighbors from above the hill, who I thought was watching me, told me to eat dinner with my parents. They were at least 25 to 30 meters away. That must have been a really loud voice. And I learned that it was also illogical that my neighbors were watching me playing baseball in my backyard and commenting on the family dynamics in my household. And next, I imagined that a friend that I had was dead, and I was trying to save her from a burning building. My neighbors started some kind of wooden ritual with some beads on their staircase, and they told me, everything's going to be okay as long as you say it out loud. It's strange that, but in the end, none of that really happened. I hadn't lost anyone. I still had my family. Everyone I knew was still alive. It was all in my head. Then I method acted, which I thought was real, but actually it wasn't. My form of schizophrenia was some kind of hallucination that I believed was real, that my neighbors were actually talking to me, that someone I knew had actually died, even though none of it was real. In my memories, when I think back on it, it still felt like it was real. That my neighbors were actually commenting on my shadow badminton playing. That they were commenting on how I was playing baseball when my parents were eating dinner. But now, when I look back on it, it was all in my head. Even though it sounded like it was outside my head. After many years of taking my antipsychotic medications, the voices are finally starting to become less intense. My psychiatrist recommends me to try a more powerful form of antipsychotic. But because of the blood tests and all, I think I won't take up that option, even though he highly recommends it. Voices are a part of my life. I've learned to live with them. And although they may be distressing at times, sometimes listening to them non-judgmentally can actually help and makes you realize that they aren't all that bad. That maybe there is a reason behind why they are there. And you just need to listen carefully.